Hey guys, and welcome to Betwixt the Books. We weren't sure that we were actually going to get this video up in time for you, but I managed to grab a copy of Morbidly Yours from the local bookstore up near my grandmother's house in New Hampshire. I didn't get an ARC copy in time, so luckily this was coming out after the book's release, and I was able to grab a copy. So we have a romance review for you guys this week. Do you want to do the plot summary?
Sure. Do you want to do the title and author?
I said Morbidly Yours. Sorry, it's Morbidly Yours by R.V. Fairbanks. Is that helpful? Nah. The first book in a Love and Galway series. Question mark.
Can I just say, I've had this complaint in so many of my videos lately where I was like, they don't tag the series. And so can I just say, love the series tag. It was the first book, so it's not like it really mattered, but I have read so many like seconds in series that weren't tagged lately. Don't do it. Don't
Yeah.
do it. Anyway, okay, so Morbidly Yours. So this is the story of Lark, who is a animation art director who picks up her entire life and moves herself to Galway, Ireland, to take up a art director job at a small animation studio. So this is wonderful armchair travel for anyone looking to spend some time in the city of Galway in Ireland. And based on the series tag, I think all of the books are going to take place in Ireland and Galway. So she details about what happened come out throughout the book. So I'm just going to give you the bare minimum to make sure I don't accidentally spoil something that comes up later in the book. But you know from early on that Lark has moved from the States and had to restart her life because nearly 2 years ago, because a 2 year anniversary will happen during the course of this book, her husband died. And details about how and what was happening will come out slowly throughout the book. But so she is, it hasn't just happened, but obviously she is still quite early in this grieving process. And so she's kind of decided that she needed to move. And so through a series of hijinks, not hijinks maybe, but like awkward, almost postal theft, and mistaken identity, she goes to what she thinks is the B&B next door to her apartment in Galway to return a package that was given to her. There were body bags inside, and she's like, why does a B&B need body bag? It's not a B&B, it's a mortuary. They need them for bodies. She has moved right in next to a mortuary that is a small family run place, or was family run. Now it's basically just run by a gentleman named Callum. This business has been at his family for generations. And he is a very socially awkward person. And so when Lark, you know, bursts in the door, she wears rainbow colored dresses and, total extrovert. And he is just like, he likes people that have no life in them. Like, they don't talk. He doesn't want to talk to people. And so it's totally just like an opposites of just like what is happening here. Lark the next day ends up needing a ride to her first day on the job through, again, a series of unfortunate events. So she ends up getting a ride from Callum in the hearse. So she has made an entrance to her new animation job. Callum and Lark begin to become closer, living next door to each other. And Callum reveals to Lark that he is potentially about to lose the mortuary because of a clause in his grandfather's will, which essentially says that Callum cannot inherit the mortuary unless he is married by his 35th birthday. Was that it?
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Which is coming up. So he has months left to try to find someone who will agree to marry him. This is complicated by the fact that, first of all, he doesn't want just like a marriage of convenience, right? He wants to have a connection with someone, and he is also demisexual. So for him, that connection, it's not just going to be like he locks eyes across the room and it's a go. He needs to have a connection with someone for that to really, happen for him. And so he's just like terrified that he is going to lose this family business. And so Lark agrees to help him set up dating profiles and help him, maybe like set him up with some people, while they remain friends. And Lark also works through her grief, but of course they become closer. And it goes from there.
Yeah, it does go from there. As far as overall reviews go, I think I'm landing this one solidly in like the 3.5 range. It was like pretty good. Nothing really like stood out to me. I was like, this is one of the best romances I've ever read. I'm not the biggest like contemporary romance reader, but this is like one that I felt like did rom-com pretty good. Like there was like a good amount of like comedic relief in here for a book where one of the characters is literally grieving the death of the husband. Like it was kind of funny. Like there was some pretty good little bits in there. But again, I don't normally read contemporary romances, and I did have the thing that happens to me, a person who doesn't read a whole lot of contemporary romance, which is kind of like, okay, can we get on with it? Like I'm reading 300 pages of these people dancing around each other. Like, what's gonna happen? um, so again, if you're like a contemporary reader, totally passable romance. I feel like it's definitely one that if you're interested in it, I'm never gonna say like don't pick it up. But it also isn't one that I'm like, everybody needs to read this book. So, yeah, pretty solid romance, but we'll talk about the pros and the cons going forward. But yeah, like a 3.5, I think is about where this book lands for me.
As someone who reads a lot of contemporary romance, this was also like a solid 3.5 stars from me. I think one of the things was like I knew about the grief going into it, and I feel like this was less like people. Well, there is some active dying happening in this book, but in terms of Lark's character arc, he's an undertaker.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of Lark's character arc, it was way more like trying to like figure out how to move on herself rather than like actively being in the depths of despair. Although, grief is not a single like directional journey, right? There are some days that are better, there are some days that are worse. And so I felt like also that storyline here played off really well with her personality as well, because she is still so committed to like bringing joy, whether it's through animation or just like having experiences. And she drags Callum out of his shell, and they go on wonderful adventures around Galway and Ireland, which was just wonderful. Like travel, like I said, armchair travel. And yeah, the relationship was fine. I did have some issues with the pacing of it, which we will talk about. And also, there were like times when I was like, this is great attention to detail, and other times where I was like, why did this happen? Which was really weird. So yeah, I have definitely I appreciated it. I appreciated what it was trying to do, and same thing, I wouldn't tell people not to read it, but it's not one that I'm just like, yeah, I really want. It's like one of the best things I've read this year. Like, no, I'm fine that I read it, but and I probably would read the next book in the series too, but I wouldn't be like chomping at the bit for it.
As Gretchen said, in like the overall review of this, Callum is demi, and if you didn't know, hi, I'm also demisexual. We don't read a whole lot of books that have demi rep in them in general, so it's nice to see that representation there and the like discussions around that happening. This is the first one that I've read or that Gretchen has told me about where I feel like the demi rep was done really well. The way that Callum interacts with these dates and the way that he talks about his sexuality, both like verbally very much aligns with demisexuality, but then it was also consistently shown in like the way that he's interacting with all of these dates that he's going on. I was like, I felt like it was like actually from the point of view of someone who understands what demisexuality means. The previous books that we've seen usually play it like, hey, I fell in love with you when we were kids and now I can no longer be attracted to anyone else because I'm attracted to you, because I had that close relationship with you for the first time and now I am no longer sexually attracted to anyone, which is not what demisexuality means. It's not like a one and done type thing. It's more so just people don't become sexually attractive to you until you have formed a close emotional attachment. And that is part of the rom-com of this book, in that you get to see him forming this close attachment with someone platonically over a long period of time, while having all of these like really unsatisfying, not clicking, kind of like horror story scenario dates from this dating app. And like that's supposed to be like what it's showing, is that like because there isn't the pressure from the get-go of trying to fall in love with her, he's able to fall in love with her because they just do stuff together as friends. Whereas like the like force of like trying to be attracted to somebody on a first date or even a second date in some cases doesn't really work. There's a scene with one of the people that he actually did know in real life that he goes on a date with, which is a thing they tried at one point, and she goes to kiss him, and his immediate reaction was wrong, bad, wrong, like just like viscerally like no, gross, and he like wipes away the kiss, and I'm like, that is like a thing that has happened to me. So if you're looking for good demisexual rep, that is here in this book. Or if you want to like understand it a little bit more, you might be able to learn something from this book about like how a demisexual person interacts with the world, because it's not that they don't have sexual attraction, and once he's sexually attracted to her, he's attracted to her, and the same way that I would assume a normal not ace person is. It just takes a little longer to get there.
Here's the thing about this dating scheme, right? So it's again, it's not like this is not something that I didn't know was going to be in this book, right? Because it's like part of the plot. It's like pretty explicit from the beginning, right? So I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm shocked. This I was not shocked. Like I expected this. What I thought though would happen in the pacing would be like they would meet, right? And she would be helping him like go on these dates, and eventually along this journey, I was hoping somewhere closer to the end of it, he would like realize, oh my gosh, like you're the one for me. Um, Unfortunately for my anxiety, Callum is quite quick to realize that he has feelings for Lark. It felt to both of us quite quick, honestly. And so then he's going on these dates while like actively having feelings for someone else. And then especially with the idea of like the demisexuality, like I mean, he's developed feelings for her in a way that he's not going to for these other people unless he spends a significant amount of time with them. And like my anxiety was just like really stressed by that. Because I have definitely read books where this plot has ended up with that a third wheel who gets hurt, and it's like
Because there's like
not
a
really
leading them on type thing.
yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
and it's not supposed to be a big deal because like obviously our two leads were always going to get together. So I did not appreciate the stress of like being really worried that that was going to happen. I will say that it doesn't happen. It's actually resolved quite wonderfully and smoothly, which is a big plus for this book. But I will say that, I wish I had known that before I read that section because I was just like really just like no 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 no. Because yeah, it's just I mean the idea of like the serial dating thing is like a fairly common conceit in many romance novels, and I mean Callum, you know that he's trying to keep the business in the family. The women that he's seeing do not. But again, it was just something where I was like, I was waiting for a shoe to drop that didn't drop. And so I hope knowing that going into it would make that a smoother reading experience for somebody else.
Yeah. I will say that I wasn't as bothered by this, and I don't know if it's because I lean towards poly tendencies. So like my understanding of like why he was still okay with doing the dates is like a little bit different. Like I do understand why somebody would be upset if they felt like they were led on. But I don't think that any of those, even the person that he went on to like a second date with, which is the most I think we heard out of any of
Yeah.
them, even that person, like that's like still pretty early on in the dating experience. It wasn't like it was like dating this one other person for the majority of the book and then was like, actually, never mind. So I feel like for me, I wasn't as bothered by that, but like totally fair reading of that. My biggest complaint with this book, and it's like the first thing that I said to Gretchen when I finished it, was that I did not understand how the main plot point got wrapped up at the end. Um, I it happened apparently.
Vibes.
I like I and there were multiple ways like throughout the course of this book that could have led to the saving of the mortuary, which is like the main thing here, right? Like he needs to get married in order to save the mortuary. There's so many different things that could have happened to save this mortuary, and the one that it ends on made the least amount of sense slash didn't feel like it resolved it at all. So really, and like when a book doesn't stick the landing, that can like really negatively affect your overall rating of a book, because that's like what you're leaving the book with, right? Um, no matter how good the rest of the book is, if the ending is subpar, the whole book is now subpar. So I guess just go into that knowing that like it has a slightly unsatisfying ending, at least in the plot respect. It still has the like romantic satisfying ending, but the plot ending is not what I wanted it to be. And both of us came up with a bunch of different ideas of how it could have been resolved when we were talking about it, and we're actually surprised that it wasn't resolved in that way. So that's the plot. I'm like, it didn't stick the landing.
Well, and I feel like too, I mean, like Callum's plot resolves, and then the book continues for another solid like 30 to 50 pages,
Yeah.
resolving Lark's plot as well. So I just kind of felt like they were just like, this is fine. And I was like, me and my lawyer have questions. Um, I I'm confused.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, like, because there was like will language and stuff like it
Yeah.
is weird.
For something that was required on a legal document,
Yeah.
the satisfaction of the requirements of the legal document did not seem to.
Razzle dazzle. And the reason that I think that this sticks out too is because one of the things that this book did really, really well in many places was an attention to detail. So for example, like we already talked about the grief bit, but I feel like one of the things that it was really careful about and respectful about was Callum's feelings towards death. Obviously, as an undertaker, he has a very different view on it than maybe many of us would, because he sees that every day. And, you know, for him, funerals are this big moment of respect and taking care of the family. And the book is not shy about showing you several scenes while he is at work embalming bodies. And like obviously, like I mean, to be fair, neither of us have ever embalmed a body, but that I know of. But
I haven't embalmed,
you know,
no.
yeah.
I've been in a room with dead bodies, but I have not embalmed.
We both did read "Smoke It's in Your Eyes," which is
Yeah.
actually referenced in the book.
Yes.
But I believe there is a book club episode somewhere that we can link above. But you know, clearly like research was done to like, you know, the tools that would be needed and the processes that need to be done. And the same thing with Lark's job as an animator. It's not like the book just is like, and then she drew a thing and animation happened. And there are like, you know, it's not in depth, but there are meetings at her job where they're talking about different animation techniques or what they're going to do with that type of thing. So I do feel like sometimes romance novels are like, I gave this person this job and then like they like never do anything with it. And this book really did. Um, so then it felt really odd in some plot places to be like, and some of it was foreshadowed, like, right? And then I was like, oh, this is where the plot is going. And then that's not what happened, but it wasn't like a red herring. It just felt like, okay, then what was the point of that plot point?
Yeah.
Like this could have connected a little bit more naturally and resolved a little bit more naturally based on work already done in the book.
Yeah.
Than what I'm seeing here right now. And that's like as far as I can tell, like this book seems to have been self-published last year in a different format. And so then it was picked up and then traditionally published, and does seem to be her debut. So these are all things that could, as you write more, you learn more and could get ironed out. But I do think that the base of the book, the attention to detail, the good representation, the ability to balance, the grief plot line with the funnier elements really gives a solid foundation. And it's one of the reasons I would be interested in reading the next book in the series. But it's also like positive that when it doesn't work out as well in another area, it just kind of highlights that area too, where you're like, but why?
Yeah.
And makes it feel like the pacing and the plot a little bit uneven. But like I said, I think it's a really, really solid foundation. And who knows? Maybe Michaela and I will both be back with that second book, and we'll see if I predicted correctly.
And if all else fails, there is a glossary of sexy Irish words at the back of the book. Just get it for that. Because everyone needs to know how to say all of the sexual anatomy and a bunch of different sexual intercourse words in Irish. Priorities.
So that was our review of Morbidly Yours. We hope that you enjoyed it. We have enjoyed reading it and making this review. I always enjoy when I drag Michaela down with me into the romance hole. Anyway, so we have some very special roundtable content coming for the end of this month. It is going to be something completely different from every reading roundtable that we've done before. The angles will be different. The recording will be different. We are actually not 100% on how we're going to be pulling it off yet. But it will be us and our friends Taylor and Emily. And we're going to be trying something completely new for a reading roundtable format. So we are very excited about that. And I hope that this very, very vague and weird teaser also makes you excited about it as well. We've been planning this for a while, so it'll be really interesting to see if it works in execution. You will get whatever happens. We'll all go on this journey together, because that is what we do here at Betwixt the Books. When we remember to make content, it usually gets weird. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.